We are so thankful to have Bonnie Ruffin, who is with DepoScripts. She's an owner. And I'm going to do a little bit of intro for Bonnie. So Bonnie is a business owner, not just this one, but has been a business owner before. Has been a paralegal, went to Barton College, and criminal justice was her degree. Most importantly, y'all, I will tell you, a lot of y'all know Bonnie and her company and the people that she works with, who are absolutely fantastic, number one. But number two, just absolutely wonderful people. They love what they do and they work so hard at it and they just excel at what they do. So we are really, really thankful to have one of the leaders, I would say, in the Southeast. That's what I know, because I don't know the rest of the country, but having to do with DepoScripts. So deposition. So thankful.
So much for having me.
Well, hopefully this is going to be a lot of fun. So some of the topics that we're going to be looking at today is the fundamentals of deposition prep, what that looks like, how do we do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Understanding the witness role and the purpose of the witness, common pitfalls and how to avoid them, and then a couple of tools and resources and some tips for paralegals and attorneys. And so a lot of you know, right, we do these on a routine basis. If you have a question, you can submit it to either the control panel on the GoToWebinar, or you can send it to an email address, which is webinar@vannattorneys.com. If you're watching this later, after it's been recorded live, you are welcome to reach out to Bonnie or to me, and we'd be both be thankful and look forward to helping answer any questions. So, so with that, so we're going to be looking at the fundamentals of deposition preparation. And just sort of looking through that, what does that look like, right? So Bonnie, what would you suggest to folks as your fundamental for dep prep?
So I think for witnesses that I see giving testimony and being questioned by attorneys routinely, I think the witness really needs to come into the deposition thinking of it as one of the most important interviews they've ever had, because usually the deposition is dealing with their livelihood, their money, their emotional situation. And so I really think that they need to come into it really prepared, well rested. I think they need to avoid alcohol or any, hopefully not, but no recreational drugs at least 48 hours before, because usually they get asked about that. Not only are they asked about that normally, also they need to be clear-minded and clear-headed to be able to respond appropriately and with, correct information.
Yeah, that's good points.
Yeah, so that's a little bit. I think also they don't need to come in, they need to think of it as if they're also presenting themselves to a jury, because it may end up in front of a jury. They also are being interviewed and they're being evaluated by opposing counsel, who has the power to settle their case, which I think is huge.
Yeah.
So
is it a little bit of a dance where you're trying to, like you say, show what the other side, show your case to the other side, right? It's a little bit of posturing.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what you're trying to do is present your case in the very best light from the information that you have, and making it so that the other person understands where you're coming from.
Yeah, that's a good point. So you asked, or you said something a minute ago about being well rested, and I don't pick on that one just a little bit because I hear it so often.
Right.
For you and I, depositions are every day, right? That's just normal part of the game. They're for people that are either the plaintiff or the defendant. It may not be routine for them to do a deposition, right? What would you give advice to somebody about how do you get rest? How do you plan for that ahead of time? Because I can't say the number of people that I know that are just really, really confident about who they are and even their case, but then get uptight about getting ready for a deposition. And don't sleep well.
I would say maybe the day before the deposition, try to be as low key as possible. Take the day off work. Relax, go for a walk, get some exercise in, eat healthy. Just try to dial everything back so all the noise in your head calms down, so that your emotions can calm down.
Yeah, that's good advice.
That's one thing I would
Yeah.
say. And drink plenty of water, be hydrated,
Yeah,
and just try to block out things that are nerve wracking
right.
so that you're not more hyped up
Yeah.
for the
That's good
deposition.
advice. Okay. What about like when they show up for a deposition, and generally most people have an attorney when they're being given a deposition,
Yes,
and hopefully you've talked to your attorney right ahead of time to be prepared.
yes.
But if they show up and they don't know anything about the facts, or what do you say to how to prepare so you do know the facts, or you're familiar with that, you're ready for it?
But I would say, I guess it depends on how this witness is involved would determine what information.
Yeah.
So I think if you're a witness and you're involved in the case and you have information available to you, I think the first thing I would do is replay the information in my mind and just go back and try to remember the details about the parties involved
Mhm.
and all that, and just go through and just think through all of that information beforehand.
Yeah.
Not necessarily reading or looking at documents, because your attorney usually advises you what to look at or not to look at, probably, maybe, I don't know. But just recalling the information and the facts surrounding the situation. And I think too, almost all witnesses are asked about their personal background. So you need to think through your educational history, you need to think through your professional job, employment history, your family members that live in the county where the case is, because the other attorney is going to ask you that. So,
so when I told the truth, he or she, the judge wouldn't have a job, right?
right.
Um,
Oh, yes.
do you, yeah, I mean, when he said, I was like, dang, that's right, right? If you tell the truth, his job's over. So what advice would you give to somebody who's being deposed about how to tell the truth?
Honestly, I think from my perspective in general, we're all humans. We all have wants and needs and desires. We all get caught up in situations that we don't necessarily want to be in. And I think even though sometimes the truth you might feel hurts your case, it's better to go ahead and be upfront and be honest about it and then address the situation around it than try to hide it. Because I see over and over and over in depositions where an attorney will ask the witness, tell me about your medical background. Have you ever had this type of injury? And they deny. And then the attorney, well, let me pull out his medical record. You were at Dr. Smith's office and you complained of this same thing you just told me you had no issues about. Or criminal background checks, civil record checks. We live in a society where information is readily available. And so I think, and there's cameras everywhere. So there's all types of information that can be looked at to verify if you're telling the truth. So it's better to just be upfront honest to begin with.
Actually, not part of asking the questions or answering the questions, but you get a chance to see it a lot.
Yes.
So talking about when there's some negative information, right? Because I know how I've advised clients and there's something negative to deal with.
Right.
I know a lot of attorneys will say, let's just get it on, let's just open it up, throw it on the table early, right? Do you see that, or do you see sometimes when people try to hide it and they try to suppress it?
I think more so people try to suppress it. I think very few attorneys bring things to light. I think some of the best attorneys are the ones that bring things to light in the beginning.
Yeah.
Some of the most talented.
Seems like you want to just get it, I'm gonna lift out and get it out of the way. That way it's not, it doesn't become an issue. Right?
Address the elephant in the room and then let's talk about why we're still here, even though that's a fact of the case. Yeah.
Any other thoughts you've got about getting ready for a deposition as the client?
Let me see. I just think that you need to think of yourself and think of the situation with empathy, even for the other side. Because when people show up and they have no empathy and they're all 100% right, that doesn't come across very well.
Right.
And in general, if I like you, I'm rooting for you. no matter what, if I'm the jury, if I'm the judge, if I'm the opposing counsel, if I like you and you're likable, I'm rooting for you. But if you are rude or, other things, arrogant, or you seem distrustful, then I think that plays really bad for your case. And I think people pick up on it.
One thing I was thinking is a lot of times as the case develops, I would imagine, at least we do, and I'm sure, I know this is not unusual for attorneys in general, you figure out what the theme of the case is and how you want that to be perceived by others. And that a lot of times that will indicate, I think that indicates when you're in a deposition, how that's supposed to be, how it's supposed to look. Right. And so it's interesting when it's everything you just said, I think is absolutely 100% accurate. So that's a good point. All right. So let's look at from standpoint from the attorney's prep, right? And we've got lawyers in our office. I think they do awesome at depositions. I don't necessarily include myself in that, but I've done it for a number of years. One thing we learned early is plan ahead, right? You want to make sure that you're ready, because especially if you're doing the deposition, you want to make sure you know what you're looking for and why you're looking for it. And then I always, we might have a series of questions that we just sort of have as an outline, but you want to think about it ahead of time, looking at the pleadings.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. The complaint.
Right.
Discovery
all of it. Right. Yes, the discovery responses is a big piece of it. I love asking questions because ones that people don't expect. There might be a question on here on a discovery response that we pick up on, and then you go, oh, I wonder why they answered that way. And then you get a chance to start picking out a part of it. It is fun, right?
I love that. And I love seeing that in depositions.
It is fun. And again, not for the people that are being deposed, but
right.
it's fun.
Yeah. Well, I think too, a lot of times the opposing counsel and the court reporter know that it matters what the court reporter thinks. Our job is to take it down. That's it. But I think people can tell if you're prepared or not. So if an attorney comes in a room, I think we can tell if they're prepared or not. And opposing counsel picks up on it too. Yes.
And we're going to talk about somebody, but I'm going to sort of put a plug in. Well, I'm going to put a big plug in for DepoScripts. Is once we reach out to them and tell them that we want to use their services, and they have the availability, which they're just great about trying to make sure that works. Is they will help you. Y'all remind us, right? Make sure you get the note, or send us a notice and make sure that this is happening and get it scheduled. But make sure you get your notice out early, right? You've already got the date down where you're going to have it, what time. And then, from the attorney's perspective, I would suggest and it's really interesting. I haven't seen it happen in notices like it used to, but it used to be that we'll have the deposition, say on Friday, August 29th, 2025, starting at 9 a.m. and it will go beginning of the time and from day to day until it's finished. Lately, I'm just seeing it that day, right? And it doesn't see it used to be, we used to say until it's finished. And the reason I'm telling you that story is I had a deposition one time, and the guy who was deposing was he didn't want to be there, and he did not want to answer any questions. He had an attorney, and we were trying really hard to get it on track, right? I just want to ask you a series of questions and be done. And he was being not such a nice guy to deal with. And finally I said, and I pulled the notice back out, which I always use as an exhibit. And I said, let's read back through that just for a moment. And I said, do you see where it says it'll go from day to day until it's completed? He said, yeah. I was like, let's make sure you understand something. If we continue this way, we will be here today, tomorrow, and the next day if we have to be. Well, that lit him up. And finally we took a break, and I asked his attorney, I said, do you want to talk to your client, in private about how this process is supposed to work? Came back a totally different man.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's just one of those things. I thought about the notice. I looked at our notices, and we don't have that in there. I'm going to start putting that back in there.
Oh, yeah, because then you can use it if they're avoiding questions.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, from the witness's perspective, from my an onlooker perspective of a court reporter seeing these depositions take place, I think when we have a witness like that, it just looks like they're hiding everything and they're untrustworthy. Yeah. So I don't think it plays very well into their case at all.
I think you're right.
It's very frustrating for the attorney trying to get answers. Yes.
Hire a good court reporter.
Yes.
And then I'm going to come back to that in just a minute, but also think through the purpose of the deposition. That's one of the things we always try to think of, is like, why do I even want to do this, right? It's never, I want to be a thorn in somebody's side because that's too expensive, quite frankly. But what's the reason for the deposition? What information do you need that you don't have? And do you need to get it for what particular purpose? So just to sort of think through that, make sure that you've got that clear. But I want to go back to hiring a good court reporter, and I'm going to ask you a question. So we had a chance to meet with Bonnie and her team a while back, and quite frankly, y'all gave us some information I had never thought through. What's the difference in, say, a court? So I'll just say, what's the difference between DepoScripts and another company that doesn't use experienced court reporters?
So I want to explain a little bit about North Carolina, because our state is interesting in some aspects, in that in the state of North Carolina, you can be a court reporter by law, but you have to be a notary public. That's the only criteria in North Carolina that you have to go out and be a court reporter, right, which is a very low standard. And so when, because of that, a lot of people are coming in, and it's easy to just provide court reporters because the standard's so low.
Right.
So what you want to look for is certifications. So national certifications. There's, different levels of certification. There's a regular court reporter that can just take it down. There's a real-time court reporter that can take it down and let you read it as she's preparing it. So there are different skill levels, there are different experience levels. So what you want to do is you want to work with an agency who is using experienced, talented, certified court reporters. And you can ask that, because if you don't, you may have a huge case with 10 attorneys, and you may get a court reporter who's used to doing 1 hour workers' comp jobs that are not very difficult. So we at DepoScripts try to place the correct reporter on the right job. We match everybody up.
Yeah. And then the difference between being certified or not is, and being experienced, makes a huge difference. I never thought about it, right, in making sure that the transcript was correct.
Yes.
I just never thought about it. I always assumed it would be.
Right. Well, I think they're even really experienced court reporters from years ago. They can turn out some really good transcripts, even if they don't have a certification. But the certification just kind of gives you that comfort level that they've been tested.
Right.
They have a skill level to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And so, if you don't have that, and you have somebody with minimal experience and minimal training, I mean, we've learned a lot.
Right.
All the years we've been in this legal industry, and court reporters who've been doing it for 10 years, they've already experienced a lot of things that they put into play. So if you have a brand new court reporter on a very complicated case, that can cause some issues. You also want a court reporter who has a little bit of backbone to say, when the attorneys get heated and they start fussing or talking over each other, I'm sorry, I can take one person at a time, otherwise you won't have the record.
So that's why I think it makes a huge difference.
It does.
And when you just said something that made me think about it, as an attorney, right? You want to ask the question, be quiet, and then let the witness answer, and not interrupt their answer. Because again, the court reporter, we tell the client or the person being deposed to not speak over or wait for the question to be asked before they answer. Same thing, you don't want to interrupt, because they're trying to record everything that's being said, and when there's conversation over conversation, you don't get a good record of it, typically.
Absolutely. And a good court reporter will typically say, can you repeat that, because I didn't quite get that. But somebody that's real timid with not much experience might let it just fly, and you think they've got the record down, and they may not have it.
Yeah. All right. So, Bonnie, from a standpoint of a paralegal, what would you say? What advice would you give for fundamentals for preparation for a paralegal?
So I think as a paralegal, I'm a North Carolina certified paralegal, and I used to be a litigation paralegal full time and loved it. That was my favorite job, even over being a court reporter. I love being a paralegal, working on cases. But I think communicating with your attorney is huge in that, different things. Will you need an expedited transcript? Will you need a draft of this transcript? Like, how quickly are you going to need this transcript? Because giving that information to the court reporting agency helps ensure they put the right reporter on the job that's capable of delivering.
Yeah. That
So,
makes sense.
and then how long the deposition will last is important. Because if you schedule a conference room at a law firm and they close at 5 o'clock, but it's going to go till 8 or 9 at night, they're going to kick you out and you're going to have to reschedule.
Yeah.
So just clear communication with your attorney is huge. I think as paralegal too, if you can help give your attorney what he needs ahead of time. So I would read the complaint. I would look at discovery responses, see where the most important documents are, and put all that together for my lawyer before he even has to ask.
Right.
So he's ready to go.
Yeah, that's good advice. That's hugely helpful. Yeah. And something we do here, we'll even meet with our paralegals and say, hey, look, what do you think?
Yes, that's a great
What do you
idea.
know what do you think we ought to ask that we haven't thought of, right?
Yes.
So.
Yeah, that's really good. Because when paralegals have ownership of their cases and they feel valued, I do think a lot of times they give you more.
All right, let me ask you this. What happens? I know y'all don't ever get a phone call going, we sent a notice out and we thought we called a court. And the depot, let's not say tomorrow, but let's say the deposition's in 2 days. What do y'all do?
Well, if you gave us 2 days notice, we'd be thrilled, because we do get calls like, oh, we're all sitting here and we forgot to get a court reporter. And so what you want to do when that happens, we all hope that never is going to happen. We hope in my office it's not going to happen, because it puts us under the gun too, but we come through. So the question is, if you show up and you don't have a court reporter, the first question is, how long is everybody willing to wait on the court reporter to get there? Or two, can we hook it up and do Zoom and provide a court reporter through Zoom, which would be a lot faster?
Let's just say, for example, that let's say it's not today.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Let's say it's a day or two.
Okay.
They pick up the phone and call y'all. Is that the best thing to do?
Yes, I think a phone call, an email, and if it's urgent, need a reporter in 2 days, put it in the subject line, just like anything really important.
It's supposed to be the day.
Oh yeah, you pick up the phone
And call, and
you pick up the phone.
Oh,
good. Well, it's happened quite a bit over the years with different clients, and because we're all human, and sometimes things get dropped. But I think the best thing is pick up the phone, send the email, do both, because a lot of times if you can't get somebody on the phone, we're going to get the email.
What advice do you have to organize the documents for the deposition?
I think it depends. I mean, what I would do personally, it depends on what type of case it is. But I would probably have the pleadings in a section. I'd probably have the discovery responses in a section. I would have the medical records or employment records or documents like that in a section. And I would look at previous deposition testimony and see what documents were, cited or referred to, and include those.
So when paralegal, right? You schedule the deposition, you met with the attorney, they're all ready to go. Is there anything, what happens the day of the deposition from a paralegal's perspective? Do many paralegals, do you see many paralegals sitting in the depositions today?
I don't. Once in a while, there'll be a paralegal sitting in. I think if you have a paralegal that is really just loves this profession, loves working on these cases, and it's a high profile case, I definitely have a paralegal sitting in. Because they can just observe. There's so much to be seen about body language and things that you might not pick up on as the attorney, that the paralegal can watch the whole time and pick up and make notes.
Yeah, that's good. Offer for the paralegal aspect?
other than just reminding your attorney that he has a deposition the next day, remind him you have this
Yes.
deposition.
Yep.
And also, you know, ask him, is there anything you can think of that you need that I haven't given you? Things like that. I'll just make sure my attorney's prepared because y'all are so busy.
All right, so what about understanding? What suggestions do you have about that? What is it? What's the purpose of the deposition?
Well, from my perspective, I think the purpose is to convey through being questioned your side of the story, sort of where you stand and the information you can provide. You, a lot of times a witness will have details about the situation that the attorneys have no clue about until they get in the
That's right.
deposition. Unfortunately.
Never heard that. Wow. Sure, that's the people I'm giving advice to. It's more testimony, right? It's as though you're sitting in the courtroom. There's no judge when you're doing a deposition typically, but it's as though you're sitting in the courtroom. You're sworn in, and it's supposed to be truthful testimony under oath, right? And it's in response to the questions that's been asked of you. And typically, it's a fact gathering process, right? There are people trying to learn what's going on, or either trying to preserve the record or preserve the testimony. Like, at least we as lawyers think about it sometimes, like, what happens if that witness is may not be here for whatever reason, if they die, right? Or if we need to lock down their testimony because it could change, that kind of stuff. And it's also, you know, so I know a lot of us, I hate to say it this way, but when I did this, I was thinking, evaluating the case strength and weakness. I really hope I know that ahead of time. But you always learn something in a deposition you didn't know.
Yeah, and I think the deposition process provides so much insight to whether, if this is a case that you're going to want to take to trial, or is this a case you're going to want to settle? Because, you know, from my perspective, I lead depositions, you know, I can't share my information and what I'm thinking with the attorneys because I'm serving a specific purpose, which is to take down the record, and I don't work for either side. But when I leave personally, I'm thinking, man, that witness was great.
Yeah.
They better think about settling this case. Or I'm thinking, oh man, that witness is so bad. They just need 3 more of these, and they're going to win that jury over.
So I think it is important for folks to understand what the role of the court reporter is, right? They don't work for one side or the other.
No,
in fact, you don't want that. I wouldn't want that, right?
No,
there have been times, and I'm sure I have asked y'all, I bet you $1,000, and I don't like to bet money, but I bet $1,000 I've asked, what'd you think? And I don't think I've ever had a court reporter ever bash the other side or tell you, oh man, your side's awesome, right?
Good.
I'm like,
That's so good.
But I want that, right? I want some confirmation from somebody else, but y'all are not in that role.
Well, my mama always told me this. She said, if you have a friend and they're always talking about the other person, they're going to talk about you too.
Very good.
So I would always keep that in mind, because you don't want a court reporter that is being unethical, and that is unethical. So when we get asked, we want to tell you guys, but we can't. And so I'm just like,
I'm gonna stop asking.
you know, we can't tell you that. But when a court reporter starts divulging that, you might want to think twice, because they might be doing that for all the other attorneys too.
So I'm gonna ask you still,
I do.
what's that called? What's that thing called?
Yeah, it's a steno mask.
They've never seen a court reporter.
Right.
They're like, are they on oxygen?
Right.
So tell those of us who don't even know, right? You're listening.
Right.
You're also recording.
Yes.
What are you doing in that
I'm
mask?
speaking. So I'm repeating everything you say. So we can do a little demo if you want.
No.
No? You sure?
I don't understand how you listen and you speak.
Everything you say.
That's
You
great.
sure you don't want to try?
I don't want to do it. I'm scared. Bonnie, that's scary. That's great.
The 250 words per minute. So if you guys are ever curious about it, you watch the news and then you try to repeat what they're saying. And when you first do that, you think to yourself, how can any human do that? That was,
Right.
I was like, I'll never be able to do this.
That's great.
So it just takes training and doing it over and over and concentrating on what you're doing. There are few, but yeah, so there are different techniques. So the most popular two methods are the steno machine, where people are typing and it's shortcuts. So they have a weird, quirky keyboard and it's a shortcut machine. Well, voice, we have voice codes. So I can go keek, and when I go keek, that puts a question mark with a period, and that means you're getting ready to ask a question. And I'll go cack, and it'll put to the next line. It'll get A for answer, period, and then I'll repeat your answer. I could go Rimsky, and that means I don't remember, and my software will type out, I don't remember. If I go Rawski, it'll type out, I don't recall. So we use shortcuts and codes in voice writing, just like steno machine writers. Yes, you always have a backup room recording because we're human and we can miss things. So a stenographer is taking it down with their human body, and also there's an electronic room recording going for almost, it should be for every court reporter under the sun. They need a backup recording. Yeah, it's fun.
I couldn't further the role because I can't even listen, much less than say what it said, right?
Speech
That's right.
and listening.
That's right. All right, so we put this in little interesting stories to learn from. Have you got a story that you can share that you think would be, it's either funny or something that would be helpful?
Couple of stories. So from my perspective, body language is huge. And so I remember one deposition, this was a personal injury case, and the guy was giving his testimony, and he came in there and his body language was like this, like, and then when he was asked questions, he's shifting in his chair, and then he would do this thing with his eye, and when he got asked a really hard question, his eye would twitch. And I was like, and I was watching all of his body language, and he got to where every time it was a really hard question, it was bad for his case because he'd answer and his eye would twitch, and I'm just thinking, lie. So that was one in particular I remember. But then there's another case I worked on where it was really sad, and a child died. And even though the witness didn't feel they had a part in it, they showed absolutely no empathy. No empathy. And as humans, even though we might not be responsible, you don't walk in there with a happy-go-lucky attitude dealing with that sort of case. Yeah. So the witnesses really need to remember why they're there.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. So I think it really does matter, your body language, and trying to identify with the other side, and maybe from looking at things from the other person's perspective, while just being truthful about what the facts are.
That's good. I had it was a husband and wife that were being deposed. I think they both had predeceased, or have now died. I can tell you the story. So without disclosing who they are, but the husband, he primarily owned the business. The wife did the finances and bookkeeping for his business, and that's why she was being deposed. And she was feisty. I mean, when I say feisty, she was feisty. Great lady, but she was very feisty. And had met with her to talk to her about getting ready for the deposition. And I told her, I said, like, listen to the question.
Yes.
Answer the question.
Yes.
And then be quiet.
Yes.
And she's like, okay. And I tell you, we worked on that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Thought we had it down great, right? And we showed up for the deposition. And I'm not real sure what she did the evening before. But she started answering the questions, and y'all, she talked and talked and talked and talked. And I was looking at her like trying to give her like, would you please be quiet? That went on for the first hour, and we finally took a break, and we got in the hallway, and she's like, how did I do? I didn't want to hurt her feelings. And I was like, you're talking too much. She's like, what? I mean, she was taken back. I'm like, I said, yeah. And I'm trying to be really kind, right? I'm like, you need to listen to the question, answer the question, and then stop.
Yes.
She's like, well, that's what I've been doing. Well, her husband walked over, and they'd been married for a long time. Her husband walked over and laid her out.
Oh, no.
I mean, he actually cussed her out in the hallway and said, just shut your mouth, right? And she's like, okay. And we went back in, and it was perfect.
Well, it's really, I mean, I've seen it in depositions where witnesses just ramble, and what happens is they just keep on, and then they give up information that it makes them look bad that might not even have anything to do with the case. And then if the attorney's paying attention, he goes down the rabbit hole and pulls out all this other stuff that hurts that person, where if they had just answered the question, they could have moved past that.
And he is so doggone smart. I mean, just a brilliant guy. But this was an emotional issue for him and the company. It's a very privately held company, but it was a lot of money, and he was emotionally charged in it as well. So I was a little bit concerned about how it was going to lay out. And the opposing counsel who was taking the deposition of our client he wanted a pound of flesh. And I was like, man, this is going to be a rough day.
Cool.
And I figured we'd be there for at least 8 hours, if not more. So we get started, and we had talked to our client about listen to the question, answer the question, be quiet, and then just be polite, right? But answer the question. So we get there, and this very good lawyer, who I have a lot of respect for, started asking my client questions. And for example, he would say, like, where did you grow up? And my client would think, and he literally would do this. He's like, where did I grow up? I grew up, and he would answer the question. He did that with every single question that he would ask. It threw opposing counsel totally off his game.
Yeah.
I mean, it messed up his whole day. I think by 1:30, we were out.
Interesting.
And we're like, we got out in the hallway, we looked at each other, we're like, what? Like, it was nothing, right? It totally threw him off.
Yeah.
And no, if I'm going to depose you and you've watched this video and you do that, I ain't letting you off the hook, right?
Yes, but it's interesting you say that, because I've seen witnesses do that. And from me observing, I think it's to their benefit, because they are thinking through, not necessarily what's your address. You should be able to come off the cuff a little bit faster with that one. But when it's a serious question, I think I've seen some witnesses ponder before they respond. And the good thing is, if it's not videotaped, it doesn't show up in a transcript. The answer just shows up. So the pause doesn't show up. And so, but they want to be sure they answer appropriately, versus the witnesses who shoot out the answers as quickly as they can get it out. Yeah, but then the attorneys don't even have time to object.
That's right.
So I've seen the other side of that too.
Common, sort of goes back to what we were talking about, volunteering information that's not asked, right?
Yes.
It's just like, for example, and if I ask, where'd you get your computer from, right? Where'd you buy your computer? Like, oh, this thing, oh man, well, I've had this computer for 10 years. I've bought it, but at the same time, I really want a new one. But so my brother had one, he was going to get, I'm like, that has nothing to do with where'd you get the computer? Right?
Bought it from Best Buy.
Period. Right. Listen to the question, answer it. Right. And then the other thing is not listening to the question.
Yes. That's so important.
Yeah. So that's sort of some stuff I've seen. And then the other pitfalls, I guess, is speaking over the other, right?
Absolutely. Because if you speak over the other person, the words overlap, and sometimes your answer is not clear on the transcript because it wasn't clear to the court reporter.
Yeah.
So not speaking over each other is crucial. Also going, because if the attorneys don't pick up on the answer, and you meant yes, or you meant no, then it can cause some issues later on.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. That's one that we try to clarify in the beginning, but everybody's getting tired.
Yeah. And-
slips in.
And sometimes, depending on the court reporter, some court reporters feel like that's not my job to ask them. And some court reporters like me, if I hear it and I think that's probably an important question, I go, I'm sorry, what did you mean by that? Yes or no? And I'm not trying to be rude, but I
Right.
want to make sure it's clear for the lawyer because I think he just missed that.
That makes sense. Yeah. Any other thoughts on pitfalls?
I think being in check with your emotional intelligence, just like dealing with anybody, any other human, trying not to let your emotions get out of control.
Yeah.
Because when your emotions are in control, that can cause havoc on the whole deposition and the outcome.
I'm sure you've seen folks.
Yeah.
That's not a good thing to do.
Try not to let people get under your skin.
So we've got a question. Can you plead the fifth too much?
I'm sure you can. I mean, I think
Yeah.
my personal opinion, I think it makes you look guilty the minute you say it.
And then hopefully the person being deposed has talked to their client about it, right?
Right.
And a lot of times we've seen this recently where the deponent, we were in a case where the attorney was directing his client not to answer, which is really from a legal perspective going to be an argument in front of the court down the road, even though there's an objection on the record. They go, yeah, I'm not answering that, or plead the fifth, right? But can you do that too much? I think it depends on the case, but also depends on the facts, right?
Well, absolutely. And I think too, sometimes witnesses will say, I'm not answering that. And the lawyer will say, their lawyer will say, I'm sorry, you have to answer that.
Yeah.
So I think when a question is asked, that's why it's important to pause just for a slight second to give the attorney a chance to object and give you instructions if the attorney wants you to answer it or not.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Excuse me, what about some tools and resources? So I know y'all have done an amazing job of helping attorneys and paralegals. So what are some tools that y'all would suggest for lawyers and paralegals?
So I, from my paralegal background and then the court reporting background merged, I was able to come up with a CPE, certified paralegal course that is for 1 hour, where we basically go through and train legal assistants and paralegals, attorneys if they want to attend, on what the court reporting agencies need to know ahead of time in order to provide the very best service they can.
Yeah. That's
so
good.
We talked about some of those things like expedites and drafts and things that the court reporting agency needs to know ahead of time.
Right. And so if you look at the webinar, or if you have the handout, it'll tell you how to reach out to DepoScripts to schedule that and to get that information. And then what about for the attorneys?
So this was something new for me and very intimidating because I have so much respect for attorneys. I love attorneys. A lot of people don't like me, guys, but I love attorneys. It's because I've always wanted to be one. So people will ask me for advice and I'm going, you need to call your lawyer. Yeah. You need to talk to your lawyer. They know. So anyway, so I put together a CLE just from a court reporter's observations in watching attorneys, some experienced, some really good lawyers in North Carolina, and some inexperienced lawyers, how they conduct their depositions. And so I created a CLE for attorneys to just share some of that information, because what we were talking about earlier, where you would say, how did it go after the depo? And we can't answer. So I prepared the CLE.
Is that a CLE that attorneys can register for and do remotely? Is it video or okay? Yeah,
and so right now I've presented that once for one group of attorneys in North Carolina, and then if you can email Hillary, you can tell her you want to be on the next webinar we do.
Oh, good.
And then they can earn 1 hour of credit too.
Hillary, put me down for that. Make sure I'm on. I'm on the mailing list already. All right. So what about some tips for attorneys and paralegals? What would you suggest?
Well, I think a little bit about what we talked about before is, reviewing the complaint, reviewing the discovery, just being a well-prepared attorney, remembering why you're going to this deposition, you know, what you're trying to achieve, making sure the attorney and the paralegal's on the same page.
Having documents ready.
Yes, absolutely.
And I will do, like, if our client's being deposed, we'll go through of what I think are going to be the documents. And if we know, I doubt, we don't generally know the exhibits, but you having a good idea.
Yeah, right.
Making sure that they've gone through that and they've looked at it, right, or have some clarity or some information about it, right, how that works.
Yeah. And so I think some of the best attorneys come really prepared. They have all of their exhibits together. They have their outline. They pretty much know what they want to address. I mean, I've seen them come in very prepared, and I've seen attorneys come in off the cuff, and I thought, wow, he wasn't prepared for that. But, you know, so you want a good attorney that has all of their information ready for that deposition. And you can tell it's great when I see an attorney come in and they're really well prepared, and most of them are.
All right, in person or virtual? So, you know, North Carolina allowed virtual depositions, really started, I guess, during COVID.
Right.
And, you know, Bonnie had mentioned earlier about body language, right? So, even within our office, there are some lawyers, some of us, I want to see the body language. I want to watch the person. I can't pick up on some stuff virtually, right? I love in-person depositions, but sometimes economically it makes sense to be virtual, right? Because it's too expensive to do it otherwise.
Absolutely.
Have you got a perspective on that other than you mentioned body language?
I think the most important thing is if you're going to want to depose someone virtually or do a hybrid deposition where some are in person and some are attending remotely, I think you need to be prepared for that and let your whoever you're using as your purporting agency, let them know you're going to do it virtually ahead of time. Right. Because you don't want to witness out in Timbuktu that they have horrible internet service and then all of it goes to pot. The other thing I would say about this is if I were an attorney, I would want to make sure that if a witness is going to be presented, they're not going to be presented on a cell phone. Because that's horrible. Not fun. No, that is not fun. And the call drops repeatedly. And I think you just can't get much in those depositions. Yeah. So I think virtually is a great tool to minimize costs. It's a great tool to have, you know, whoever needs to be on the deposition to join. But at the same time, you need to be sure your technology is set up for it.
And I would say DepoScripts as well. She helped us a while back. I think it was during COVID, to learn how to use electronic documents, right, and exhibits, and it was so helpful. But I remember the first time I did, I was so, it's like I was doing the first step. I was so scared and what to do.
It is scary.
But because how y'all help, and y'all still do this, y'all help us now, right? To make sure that we get everything marked, get it lined up. The other side didn't have to see it ahead of time, but if you want to, they can. It's, you know, it's no big deal. But that was a huge help. We all did a great job with that.
And speaking of that, we have a deposition in the morning at 5 a.m. The witness is going to be in England.
Oh my.
And so Hillary will be presenting the exhibits for the attorney, and attorneys love this because they don't have to worry about the technology and sharing the document. They just say, Ms. Creech, would you please pull up exhibit 2? So we do offer that service as well for attorneys who just don't want to deal with it, whether or not they know the technology or not. So we're there helping them do that. Absolutely.
Y'all, they're not paying us. This is not a commercial for DepoScripts. We're going to do a great job. So, if y'all have a question later, I'm just making sure we don't have any other outstanding questions. Let us know, and you'll just reach out to us, and you can reach out to DepoScripts as well if to connect with them, get on their mailing list because they do a great job of education, but also just training and then other efforts to get people together to talk about best practices. Yeah, y'all did that not too long ago.
Yeah, this will make everything easier for everybody involved.
Any last words of advice or suggestions?
I would just say, make sure you're prepared for the deposition, whether you're the witness, whether you're the attorney, whether you're the paralegal, be prepared. I mean, I can't say that enough. And and ask questions. Yeah, show up early and hire a good court reporting agency that you trust and that you can communicate easily with. You know, the other thing is you want to be able to reach these people when you need something, and attorneys a lot of times need something at the last minute. So you want to get somebody, work with somebody you can talk to.
You know, hopefully this helps y'all. Bonnie, thank you so much for your time for doing this. It's a joy to work with y'all. Y'all do a great job. And again, for those who have dialed in, we're thankful. Hopefully this helps you. And we look forward to connecting with you next time. Thank you all.
Thank you.